Hello and welcome to the Spanish Grand Prix around the Circuit de Catalunya, a home race to many of our drivers, many team principals as well. Many teams will be trying to impress the team principals to reach for that race contract, which is, as we've seen before, very critical in this league to secure a good spot. Many reserve drivers are very strong, because of which many primary drivers now tend to lose their spot in the league. We are racing around the circuit, which has been live since 1991 in the Formula 1 calendar. A circuit of 4.6 kilometers, 33 laps, as we're doing half the distance, and the time to beat from the real life drivers is a 1:18.4 set by Daniel Ricciardo in 2018. We see the Ferrari, they're going slightly wide. The Ferraris have something to fight for. We've seen plenty of action in this league before. The previous race has been won by Ice-T with a very dominant performance. 39 seconds separated him from his teammate Aaron at the end of the race, as we now see the Ferrari going very wide again, possibly leading, showing that he might have some track acclimatization problems. But as I was saying, Ice-T had a very dominant performance last race, he was followed by Aaron, Kimi, Bo and Jacob. The Renaults were dominating the race around Monaco. It is something that we cannot go against, but the truth is that they are also dominating the standings, the team standings. They currently look as follows. Renault was first with 78 points, followed by Alfa Romeo with 52, Mercedes with 50 and Haas with 47. Williams owns 36 points, which is on a share with Racing Point, followed by McLaren with just 1 point behind, 35 points for McLaren. Ferrari hits 32, Red Bull hits 25 and Toro Rosso hits 15. The Ferraris were very dominant at the start of the season. They had won a race, was strong in pre-season, but they haven't managed to carry that momentum into this season where it actually counts. It seems as if it's fairly bad luck, I'd have to say. This driver's definitely capable of more. It's about to be finished at 1:19, still 1 second off the primary time of Daniel Ricciardo in 2018. As we've seen in previous races, this is something that these drivers will beat on every single occasion. They're just way faster than the real thing. As we hit a yellow flag in sector 3. As there goes the Mercedes of Manel, going slightly wide. That will definitely cost him a lot of time, but that sets him the lap into 5th, 1:21.91. With Manel, I'd like to take you around the circuit. Turn 1, 2 and entering turn 3 is the chicane, one of the lower grip areas around the track. A 90-degree turn right it is, sometimes or almost always very dirty and open lobbies, followed by turn 4, which is the first turn of sector 2, into the run into turn 5, a very sharp for this track turn left, followed by the entrance into turn 6 and 7. This is the area where drivers really struggle for grip, one of the 3 areas where you need to be on point with your acceleration. There goes the straight back, which runs from turn 9 to turn 10, entering sector 3 at the end of that straight. Turn 11 and entering turn 12 is probably one of the hardest turns in this on this track. It's absolutely lacking for grip. No one has anything there. It's just solely dependent on the driver's performance. Here we see Meadow entering the pits, but the lap finishes off with a very round turn 16. And that is your track guide for today's race. We've seen many drivers setting the laps on hard tyres, which is something very confusing. Although it would make sense for the upper drivers, for the drivers which have shown that they are capable of speed, to be trying for something better than the bottom 10. After all, starting in the top 10 means that you have to remain on the tyres that you had qualified on. We see Dolga actually disqualified from the session. If we take a look at his car, I can't seem to find Dolga. There he is at the very bottom now, disqualified after being parked in a dangerous location, having a 5th place grid penalty before. This is not going to line up very well for the Mercedes. This is qualifying, I'd like to remind you, so of course there is no safety car and no red flags either, just a simple yellow. Between sector 2 and 3, a 119 is still the time to beat. We now see Kingski for one of his first ever early runs in the league. He hits P6 at his home circuit. He has learned from his past race and past mistakes. He's been starting very low down the grid because of setting a lap in the very late stages of the qualifying session, which meant that any mistake meant that he had no more laps to complete. But he is P6, something that he should be very proud of, that he's achieving on medium compound tyres in a racing points. Even though this is quarantine and these people in the stands should be back at home, there's definitely a certainty of boost that this driver is receiving, knowing that he must perform better as a home Grand Prix. But I'd like to remind you that it's not just the qualifying session that builds the results for a weekend, it's also the race, which is arguably the more dependent factor, especially at such a track as Spain. It's not the easiest track to overtake, but it's also not the hardest. These drivers will be going left, right and centre of each other, hopefully not leading to any collisions. We've seen those way too often in the past races. A beautiful shot of the McLaren here. Make sure to take a screenshot if you can. Here goes the Renault, actually cutting the corner slightly. This is Aaron, who I'd like to remind you is one of the two drivers that has... Oh wait, no, sorry, that is my bad. But on the points of penalty points, the two drivers that have received penalty points are Compassion and Can. They're both on 1, and the next penalty point they do receive will kick them from the league. That is the current stance of P7. That has a penalty point, and Can, by the looks of it, is not starting in today's race. We see another reserve driver in the league, the Toro Rosso, as Killers actually sets a 118.7, which is the new time to beat. But that is still not faster than Daniel Ricciardo's fastest time in 2018 Red Bull, which is the lap record around this track for a Formula 1 car in the V12 era. The very long straight, which links turn 16 and turn 1, is an absolute downer for some of the drivers which will be wanting to keep their positions, because the slipstream, the DRS, is everything around such a long straight here. Another beautiful shot of the McLaren, who now goes through the start finish line, starting a new lap a lot of speed, braking around the 75-meter mark. He now goes turn left, turn 1 and 2. He has dropped down into P12 by standards of other drivers qualifying. He was very wide there, but he keeps it running plus 224 seconds, 0.224 seconds, of course. It's the distance that he now has to the leader in this lap. He's now dropped down into P13, absolutely coming close to the Haas that he's just passed. Now the lower grip area, a very important part of the track, and his lap is disqualified. Not the best start for the driver. If we take a look at Aaron though, you might see his little helmet there. It's actually a helmet that he's designed for this race. A little special something to treat the fans, I guess you could say. As we see the driver in front of him actually going all over the little boards. And we see the McLaren off in the side. Which seems as if it's for no reason. It's this McLaren here. A very wide track, we can see the Spain de Catalonia is. Crashing will most certainly chip off the driver's part of wings, but as long as they manage to brake early and not crash into the walls, they will be safe. Now here we see this driver who's currently in third. Whoa, that was a blast of a Toro Rosso, the torpedo, and everyone's going wide. I was expecting this driver to start a new lap, but he is entering the pits. Remember to go and drop a like under this video, it helps the entire crew here. As we now see that this McLaren driver has actually set the fastest sector free, but he is not going to continue this run. Now got a shot of the Alfa Romeo going through sector 1 and about to enter sector 2. The circuit may seem as simple. Some people will say that this track is very boring, but it is most certainly demanding. The amount of places that you can cut corners or go wide here is infinite, and the amount of places where you can overtake is a bit more limited than that. Before the race in the Discord server, Kimi had asked the Discord simulation whether it would think that he'd win the Grand Prix. It said yes, but if that is going to be the case, I don't know, and I dearly doubt it. If a driver puts his trust in magic, it's not really going to go far, because this league is one where you need to have the skill and the talent and clearly just the speed. After being in P8, Kingsley he's now in P16. He needs to be leaving the pit soon if he wants to fight for anything better than that. Here goes Hybrid. The Red Bull driver has had a fairly good season. We all remember the moment in Brazil where he and Killers absolutely jumped Manel at the start, but they didn't end up winning the race. We remember that Killers had won it on track position, but due to penalties the win was handed over to Manel. Hybrid taken P3 in that race. He's definitely going to be hoping for something more than that. He's shown that he's a talented driver and deserves the win, but he hasn't managed to achieve that yet. 3 minutes is the time to go until the end of this race, and the current Ferrari of Killers is still the fastest car with the fastest lap out of the grid today. A 1:18.7 is still the time to beat, which is quite surprising considering that that was a time set in the early stages of this race, of this qualifying session. As we now see the Red Bull going for a start to his flying lap. He's on the medium tyre compound, so he is hoping for a top 10 finish. We welcome our 6th viewer here today. He goes through turn 1 and 2, perfect execution of the chicane. He enters turn 3, slight touching of the apex. His left tyre only just going over the line there. Now making sure that his entire car touches the apex here. He goes round absolute swim with every single car that is out on track now. He enters sector 2 soon into the boot area of the track. Low grip is something he's not going to have to watch out for. Very easy on the acceleration here. He now goes for the turn right 90 degree there, and he's currently not been set in the fastest sector 1 or 2, but he now enters sector 3, and we see that his sector 2 was the fastest sector 2 that has been set so far. He has gone very wide, which will cost him a bit of time. He has 1.4 minutes left set already, as right now retires from the session. That is the Williams gone, and not the best look for hybrid here as he goes to the final chicane. But from P16 he will definitely be managing to hold on to something better with that purple sector 2. Does he? No, he doesn't. Devastating news for the Red Bulls. P14 is the time they set now after having a purple sector in sector 2. This driver will now be struggling in the race. As we see the Toro Rosso going out into the gravel perfectly, as we just take a look down there. Kimi on the other hand is the driver setting his lap now, one position behind his teammate. They're separated by less than a tenth of a second. Both drivers need to be beating their teammates. They're racing in the same car, and it's always what makes racing so exciting is the teammate rivalries. 16 seconds left of the session, but of course the drivers that are already on a flying lap can finish it. The medium tyre compound now taking this driver through the sector 2. As we now take a look, does he set a purple sector 2? No, he does. Yes, he does. Sector 2 has been dominated by the Red Bulls, as this raging mini-max now goes threatening every single part of sector 3. Compassion gets a 5-place grid penalty after running in 10th, and the Red Bull has managed to keep that chicane running without any penalties. He now is about to enter the start-finish straight, and that is him in P4. A 1:19 is a definitely staggering result for the Red Bull. This team will be devastated to see this. Losing out to your teammate is never a good sign. But by the looks of it, this is going to be your starting grid for today. Killers, it's set to 118.7, which is well clear of all the other drivers. It's 0.3 away from the Haas, and over a second away from the McLaren, which could potentially signify that we're going to have a quite dominant performance from the Ferraris. Kingsley remains with his 120.4. Some of you might be asking why I'm always talking about Kingsley, but the truth is he's been the driver that has had a very dominant performance in pre-season, so it's quite weird seeing him all the way down here. But you can now take a look at the starting grid for your race today. The top 3 have set the laps on the soft tyre compound. The only top 6 competitors who have set a lap on a different tyre is Kimi. He has set the lap on a medium tyre compound, meaning that he's going to have the edge going into this race. An easier strategy is going to be earning. And the grid is rounded off by Dog and the other Mercedes who has been disqualified from the session. As we see between P1 and P19, there is a difference of over 1.7 seconds. Something that could potentially show us that we're going to have some back markers running in the race today. Final adjustments of strategies are the ones for the drivers to complete. I'd recommend, from my past experience, although I haven't been league racing much, my experience tells me that the perfect strategy would be going from a medium tyre compound to potentially a soft one later on in this race, but this track is a very hard one to manage tyres on. Drivers will need to be easing off the throttle a little bit, making sure that they're conserving fuel, ERS and tyres, because 2 pit stops is definitely going to be something dreaded by many drivers, especially around such a quick circuit. But we've seen a safety car in every single one of the races, it's every single one of the past races. 4 safety cars hit up every race since pre-season to round 3. Round 4 had been around Monaco, and quite staggeringly, quite unexpectedly, it only had 1 virtual safety car, which is very weird for Monaco. We've seen all the drivers being resistant and hitting the safety car and making the safety car deploy, but what we haven't expected is only 1 virtual safety car to come out at Monaco. But here we see every single car swimming around. We don't seem to have a Kimi Raikkonen, although there is an Alfa Romeo in the back there, not swiveling too much. Eyes are on Kimi here in the Red Bull, which will be trying to make up positions with the Williams behind him. He's not going to have too much of competition from behind, but he is overtaken by the Williams there on the starting lap, on the formation lap. Letting some drivers past, going straight. It's by the looks of it, his tyres must be worn by now. But he's barely gone through a sector here. I'd like to remind you that every single driver, starting with the Toro Rosso here, has had the ease of choosing their own tyre for the start of the race. Everyone before that, and that is Aaron and upwards, will be forced to start on the tyre compound that they have qualified on. The current standings are, as I have said, Renault, Alfa Romeo and Mercedes. The standings in drivers are as follows: Asti with 67 points, Manel with 50 and Aaron with 38. A quite huge gap is starting to form between these drivers. But anything can happen. We've still got plenty of time for absolutely everything. This is round 5, sorry, around the Spain de Catalonia circuit, and we're about to see 5 lights round up as we now see Dolga in the Mercedes rounding off the grid here, and we're now waiting for the lights to come up. I wish we had an action shot from the front of the cars, but we don't, unfortunately, as we do here now. 5 lights and long wait, but away we go. The Haas now gets a fairly good start, but is easily overtaken by the Ferrari, who has started first. A very easy run into turn 1, but the Haas blocks the Red Bull there. He makes a touch and touches the Alfa Romeo. The Haas goes for a spin there, hitting the which gets hit by the Mercedes. And that must bring out some form of safety car. But all this gives him McLaren, which was running in P2, and which was running in P3, and I into P2. Kimi right into P4, as he has been overtaken by the Alfa Romeo. He has had a chance for a podium position, but unfortunately that has not happened. A very unfortunate one for the Haas there, which was starting second, and for the Mercedes after him. If we take a look down the second, we now see that Aaron is very close to Mano. He has to ease off there. The DRS has not been enabled yet, but he goes for the lunge into turn 10. He goes quite wide, pushing the Mercedes out, and he's now subject to a possible move from behind. A big train forming here, and we now see several drivers off the track. Yellow flag in sector 3. a huge train forming here. Killers now sets the fastest lap of 1:25. Of course, that was the first lap, so it is going to get beaten very soon. We now see plenty of drama, as here is the Toro Rosso side by side with the Red Bull. With the Renault, sorry. Can he make a look into the inside, into turn 1? Yes, he does. But does he make a mistake? Yes, he does. Beautiful move by Compassion here. After starting so deeply down the field, as the Renault goes very far off here. As we see, that must have been the Alfa Romeo of Monster or King there in the pits in the incident before. Very unfortunate for these drivers after starting in P3, I think it was. But thanks to all this, we have had quite a difference now, and quite a change for the podium positions in this race. The race is now still led by Killers, 2 laps in. 0.6 seconds separates him from the driver behind him. Jack, the reserve driver for McLaren, is now pulling away from the Red Bull of Kimi behind him. The Raging Bull will definitely be hoping for something more than the position he's currently in. A retribution is something he needs. Lap 3 has now commenced. Killer sets at 1:22 in the Scuderia Ferrari. As we now start to see quite a dominant performance from the Ferraris, but the Renault goes up on the inside at a beautiful overtake, clean, and he manages to keep it hold up even before they enter the braking zone into turn 1. The Orlan Rexona Williams is now pushing towards the top 10. Something that we would definitely not really see in real life, but something that's very interesting to see here. Aaron now goes for a very wide exit of that turn, which gives an eye to the McLaren behind him. We see a change of position between Jacob of the Cass and the Toro Rosso behind him with his slow grip zone. They're all easing off the throttle, but DRS has been enabled, which actually gives the Toro Rosso a big toe, allowing him to make the move on the Haas here, squeezing him out. As we see a shot from the teammate behind him, they go side by side, touching in every single corner. By the looks of it, it's going to be the Haas that has the inside, but no, the Toro Rosso takes it, and that is the lead of this little rivalry given to the reserve driver of the Toro Rosso. This is definitely going to ease him and give him a chance to receive a couple race contract, as this is something that illegal that his drivers don't know. It's going to be counting as blocking, which is possibly going to give him a penalty spot. Of course, no carnage has arisen here, but something that we have missed is Kimi's move on the McLaren behind him. So P2 has now been attacked by the former P4, and the Red Bull is now going to be hunting the Ferrari down. The spirit of Max Verstappen, as we've called it before, as in this driver, a very strong performance from him in previous races. As we see a position change in the drivers at the bottom of the field. Right now, after starting just behind the top 10, is running P20. Not the ideal position for the Mercedes driver after winning several races and being strong in the race, but all odds are starting to turn towards the Ferraris and the Renaults. Lewis 10 has left the session, something that will definitely bring back dramatic experiences and memories to Hybrid. Kimi now sits at 1:22.6, which is the fastest lap around, as we now see the Mercedes going up on the inside in the back straight of the racing point of Savvy. He makes a beautiful move there. Of course, the DRS and slipstream has helped a lot, something that Jensen Button detests a lot, as we all know from the book that he's recently released, called How to Be an F1 Driver. For those of you that haven't read it yet, I strongly recommend you to do so. Going through turn 16, these drivers are now beginning to form a little gap between each other. Killers now separates himself from the driver behind him by 1.3 seconds, and the difference between him and the McLaren is a 1.9. If we take a look at the position changes that we've had, we see Kim that's made up 2 positions since the start of the race. McLaren has remained in his B3 podium position, but the worst the worst team is definitely well, not the worst team, but the team which is in the worst situation is definitely the Alfa Romeos. After starting in such good and dominant performance positions from the top 5 and top 10, they end up going into the bottom positions, as we now see Killer's actually going into the pits for a very early stop. It seems as if his medium tyre compounds did not last, although I do think that this might have been an accidental pit stop. He might not have made the move there. He didn't change his front wing, but all odds, as I have said before, are lying to Kimi, and the 8 ball, which has been in the Discord server of this league, turns out to be correct. Kimi ends up leading the race by 3 seconds to Jack in the McLaren, but we see the Renault of Ice-T now coming very close to the car in front of him. Ice-T will be fighting in VRL in just a few hours against Jaya Fletcher for the win of the Constructor Championship, Driver Championship, sorry. Jaya has entered the VRL League 4 races in and has managed to catch up to Ice-T, so he's going to be the one pressured to go into this race. But if he manages to gain a lot of confidence in this race with a good performance and a good applause after this race, he will definitely be the confident one going into the competition of VRL around Abu Dhabi later. Enough for other leagues. What we've seen here is several pit stops now on lap 7 of 33. By the looks of it, the drivers are starting to show that their tyres are having enough, especially the subsides, as we now see the Toro Rosso going on the outside of the Renault. He has the inside into the turn 2, but the Renault eases here. He manages to push the Toro Rosso out wide, and look, Kane has had a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, but the Toro Rosso still manages to hold on, and he now takes the lead of this rivalry. The Renault goes very wide here, now squished between the 2 Toro Rossos. By the looks of it, the medium tyre compound has been the better tyre compound start for this race. These drivers are managing to hold on for a lot longer. The one-stop strategy might be a very dominant one, as we now see the Toro Rosso out of the track. The McLaren of the American Race Crew doesn't seem as if he's going to manage to catch up because of this incident, but it's definitely something that Compassion hasn't been aiming for. He has already got a penalty point under his name. This is a huge change of positions in this race. Kimi leads by 8 seconds. Of course, this is due to pit stops and everything as such, but this is still a dominant performance from this Red Bull driver. We thought that the Ferrari would be the one dominating the race in after the qualifying session, but this is clearly not the case. The Renault has managed to actually stay on the tail of the Toro Rosso in front of him. This could be a big battle that we're seeing here, as we actually see a position change between the Ferrari, the Mercedes, Motor 10 and Dolga. This is the 2 second drivers, you could say, in this league, although this league does not accept any contracts to be demoting any driver and putting any driver above his teammate. It is pretty obvious that the dominant drivers in the Ferrari and Mercedes team are Killers and Manil. What we see now though is Aaron run away from the Ferrari and P9. The upper position is going to be, I mean, this still is the mid-pack of this whole group, but that is a lot of slipstream and DRS that the Ferrari has managed to take here. Aaron tries to go up the inside and protect himself, but he hasn't managed to do so with the after he had touched the gravel there. the train reforming around the circuit between positions 8 and 6. By the looks of it, Kingsley is actually in P6 after having a poor qualifying session, but he's now starting to get jumped by the Williams as the Williams tries to go around the outside. Can he make a mistake? He pushes Kingsley wide there, forcing him to go into the gravel, which loses him 2 positions, but that is the Williams going successfully and victoriously out of that little rivalry there. The Alfa Romeo will now be eyeing on the P6 position after running P8 there. Kingsley must be devastated after having a poor qualifying session and managing to go up further in this grid. He has now been pushed wide, limiting his performance. Mustang the Alfa Romeo, as we've just seen as moments ago, has managed to look up his tyres. Not the best news for this driver. What we do see is this train continuously being alive. The Racing Point, as we've heard, has had his DRS enabled, but that is still something that, by the looks of it, is not going to be enough to hold on to these guys. They're becoming the more dominant force in this rivalry. We see several trains here, the 3-car train here, and then the train P4, which is the fight between Compassion and Reiki. The straight is where drivers will be gaining a lot of time, but it's also the place where the distance will be extended, as we now see the slipstream making a big effect on the Alfa Romeo as he makes a move clear into turn 1, locking up his front right tyre, but that is not enough to limit his move there, as the Alfa Romeo is now coming in close to the Williams in P7. Retribution is what he's seeking here. That doesn't seem as if it's enough to make anything happen here. Hybrid now makes a move thanks to pit stop drama. Kimi leads by 9.5 seconds. 9.6, his lead is becoming dominant over and extending over every single lap. This is pretty amazing from this driver. As we see these drivers still fighting, and so are the ones behind them. As we now see a big boy dive bomb by the Racing Point going up on the inside of the Williams, something that was very dangerous, might lead to the penalty point of one of the drivers, which is actually the leader and founder of this league. Not the best performance from, not the most sportsmanlike performance from him here, but there was nothing he could do. He was going for the move, and he showed that he deserved it. With several drivers having the DRS enabled here, it is down to slipstream and setups that actually, and the exit of the out of turn 16, that will give them the edge here. As we now see a fight between P9 and PE. This is Killers fighting the Williams for the position of P8. I was expecting this race to be much more relaxed, more like the races we've had in the past, but this is nothing like those. As 1 pixel of space is enough for the Ferrari to be going up on the outside of the Williams, but that is not enough to be holding on to the position. It was just a slight entrance onto the lead of the race. Well, not the lead of the race, but the lead of the rival. You know, is pretty much pushing, drafting always the driver in front of him. DRS has been enabled. Slipstream drama now lets him go on the outside. Can he make a stick? The Racing Point of Kingsley is slightly spicing things up here, limiting how far the drivers can go, but this is something quite amazing. One of the fastest cars in real life, and in this league is now fighting Williams, which is definitely nothing close to that. But the skill of these drivers is clearly something better. DRS enabled. Jacob gets a 3-second time penalty, but the Ferrari still goes on the inside of the Williams. It seems as if there's nothing the Williams can do anymore. It's just a dominant performance from the Ferrari. He'll be having to push on here so that he doesn't get caught back between turn 9 and 10, known as the back straight of the circuit. As we see the Ferrari immediately pushing Kingsley here. It's only a matter of time before he makes the move. Kingsley hasn't had the best performance here yet because he is under pressure from the Ferrari right behind him, which manages to get put behind after Kingsley keeps him there. A beautiful helmet delivery combo that we see in the Ferrari here, but the Ferrari is the one enabling DRS, which could give him an insight into turn 10. It is not enough though, or is it? The Ferrari goes up the inside, which luckily enough doesn't lead to any drama apart from the potential move of the Williams into turn 14, into turn 11, sorry. Kingsley is trailing, he is a victim here as he now goes into the pits, releasing Killers here. Lap 13 and drivers are already pitting. Kimi is one of the drivers which hasn't pitted yet. If we take a look at the drivers which haven't pitted, the top 4, including Monster, which is actually one of the drivers that has been in an incident at the beginning of the race, hasn't pitted yet. We see more penalties being awarded. But the one thing that Kimi will be hoping that won't happen is a potential disconnection from the server. Last race, a very brutal event of his Wi-Fi ended up potentially costing him the race. It's because of the internet connection. He had disconnected for many of the laps for arguably one of the more important part of the race. It was the start that had led him to being a victim in the race, and after reconnecting to the league, he was running in the midfield positions. Not enough until the end of the race. Of course, around the Monaco circuit is a lot harder to overtake, but it was not enough to possibly give him an edge and win the race there, although he was definitely capable of doing so. He had the speed there. The McLaren now goes into the pits as we see Killers back in P3 after, I think, having a pit. Yes, he has. Sorry, this is my bad there. Killers is the only driver of the top 3 positions to have had a pit in this race so far. 21 seconds, however, separates Kimi from the drivers behind him. If he manages to extend this lead, he will be the one potentially saving himself a lot of drama, making an overcut, sorry, on the other drivers, as we now see the Renault fighting the Toro Rosso in front of him. 4.4 kilometers per second actually is being acclimatized left, right and centre. These drivers are making sure that they take the racing line into every single corner, because that is what they need. They need the most speed they can possibly get, because it's the speed that wins you a race. The final chicane is a very dangerous one. Kimi, that is Monster, sorry, going into the pit, which brings Killers now loose. This beast is now hunting the Red Bull in front of him down. He was the one being hunted just not so long ago, as he has emerged behind the driver that started behind him. Kimi is on a one stop by the looks of it, thanks to his 20-second gap. He has re-emerged from the pits. As quietly as he entered, he has exited, and he is now in front of Killers with a 3-second gap, meaning that he is very far from the potential risk of having his opponent opening his DRS flaps there. Dominant performance here from the Red Bull, absolutely amazing. He timed his pit stops correctly, he timed his laps, he's probably timing his fuel very well as well. If we take a look, he is managing his ERS well as well. So are the other drivers, although some are managing it better than the others. What we see here is the Renault going in P4. I see, as I've said before, will be having the pressure of VRL on his shoulders later this day. But the most pressured driver in this league, in this race so far, is definitely going to be Killers, who's now having to cut the time on Kimi. I'm telling you, we have a big fight coming up in this race. I wonder who will win, honestly. It's unpredictable whether it was going to be the longer strategy of Kimi, or is it going to be the faster compound tyre of Killers here. We've seen some breaking news from the Mercedes drivers. F1 Lion, that is his tag, who was the Killers, has retired from the session. That is the most unfortunate thing you could possibly imagine. Yellow flag in sector 1 and 2. The Ferrari of Killers has retired, and so has Kinski. I am left speechless here right now. Killers, after having such a good race, he was here capable of possibly winning something, has absolutely left himself there by crashing into the wall. That is very unfortunate, but very fortunate for the Red Bull of Kimi, who is now going to be cruising to the end of this race. Just over 15 laps left of this race, and this driver is definitely being ready to party, because he is going to dominate the rest of this race. There is no contention here. All he has to do is bring this home now. Or will he? The commentator's curse is something that we've seen in other leagues before, and potentially it's what had ended up with Killers in the wall. If it is so, I'd like to apologise for this, and hopefully my words won't be harming Kimi as much as they've harmed Killers there. But as I was saying before, F1 Lion, the former team principal for the Mercedes team, is now going to be a driver for the Mercedes next season, which is going to displace one of the drivers. By the looks of it, it's going to be Dolga that has to leave the team, as Manuel has had quite a good season so far. He's won a race. It's not the best running position for him right now, but he is still the upper driver in this team. Dolga, on the other hand, is driving a top car, but isn't managing to bring the results home, which is what could ultimately cost him the position on that team. He's going to have to go for something more and prove himself, and prove to other team principals that he deserves a seat for next season. I'm not entirely sure how the teams will line up for this season next time it goes around. It could potentially be with the draft picks once again. We see Aaron going quite defensive there. He's going to have to defend from the driver which is now attacking him, which is the Haas of Jacob. This is something that could potentially bring out a safety car if it goes wrong. But if it doesn't, this is going to be a fight of a lifetime. I am still in disbelief of what happened to Killers that he has left the session. I'm sure he's in disbelief as well. He's probably hitting his wheel now, wondering how he's let that mistake happen, because that was something that prevented him from bringing a solid amount of points home and potential win. But enough of mourning. All eyes are now on Kimi, which is forced to just keep a cool head and bring some results home. The Taurus is now fighting a hybrid there, a fellow SHR member of man who hasn't performed too well in this race so far compared to his teammate, but we've seen him come close to win a race before. We are on lap 19 of 33 and this race is coming to the ending phase as the middle part is slowly coming to an end. Something that I definitely wish never happened, because this race is so interesting to commentate. I'd love it to never end. Kimi, meanwhile, in the Aston Martin Red Bull Racing, manages to set the fastest lap. It was the 1:21. He therefore extends his lead to 11 seconds. His driver is clearly continuing to push, which might not be the best idea if you ask me. This driver has got a clear track ahead of him. He doesn't need to prove anyone here. As we see the Alfa Romeo of Monster now going up the outside of the McLaren. He goes clear into turn 1. Not much drama there thanks to the slipstream and DRS. Mechanical grip v aerodynamical grip is something that we hear a lot in different types of racing. The races where tyres are covered by the chassis of the car tend to, well, not tend to, but always the ones which rely solely on mechanical grip. Mechanical grip is the one where you've got the sort friction of your tyres against the surface of the track that you have to rely on. Aerodynamical grip, however, is what you get when you, on the air of course, is directed over the tyres by the front wing, leading them to be compressed on the asphalt a bit more. It's something that Jensen Button talks a lot about in his book, How to Be an F1 Driver. Once again, I'm giving it free shout outs to that book there. But it is something very interesting that you should all read up on. I'd strongly recommend that. What we see with these F1 cars, of course, is aerodynamical grip, as we saw the Alfa Romeo lock up there. Potentially what has costed Formula E with so much of a loss in the interest of racing is the lack of aerodynamical grip. After introducing the second version of the Gen 2 car, they have sacrificed aerodynamical grip by covering up the tyres, which ultimately manages to keep the tyre temperatures under more control, but at the same time relies the cars on mechanical grip. Was that a good idea? I don't know. The cars did look slightly better there before. But it is what it is, or as some of you might know the meme, it is what it is. Some of the drivers in the back of the grid have actually run on a two-stop strategy. We see the two Renaults side by side. Of course, one of them is the one being lapped, and that is Aaron being lapped with 2 stops. A very unfortunate race for him after starting in the upper positions. Well, not upper positions, but he has started in P10, which is, I'd say, good enough to fight for something more than that if you're a highly skilled driver like him. But unfortunately it's not what he's managed to do today. With it's lap 22 of 33, meaning that we've got 11 laps left of this race, and dearly I believe that there's not much he can do anymore, as we now see some drama here between the drivers here. Aaron gives up and retires from the session, as we've seen a move here but just a moment ago. As we've seen as a yellow flag, thus potentially Aaron has not given up. It's been something else that could have potentially triggered that. Kimi now pushed his edges there to manage to overtake the safety car there. What he could have done is gone into the pits onto the medium tyre compound. The fast compound would have protected him in the later laps of this race. That's also why he potentially had left the grid here. Yes, as we see here, so many drivers are pitting, but Kimi is not. This is a moment where a lot is at stake. This has been a very clean race so far. And drivers, as we see, are going on a soft tire compound, which is arguably not the best, considering that they have to do 10 laps left, 10 laps to do. So the safety car parked up there on the side, as we have to wait for Kimi to catch up. The big question is, will he pit? He's still got the front of the 33-second gap, as everyone has had to slow down, meaning that he still does have the free pit stop. Does he though? Does he dive into the pits onto the medium compound tyres? If I was him and if I was the team principals on the chat radio right now, I would be begging him to do so. He does go into the pits. A very wise move from the Red Bull. The safety car has managed to actually help him here. He's definitely been hoping to that these tyres will be enough to last him the entire race, but even if they were, going into a fresher compound will be better. As he goes onto the soft compound tyre, the top drivers, by the looks of it, are on the soft tyre compounds. That is P1 and P3. The Williams running P4 has hesitated to pit. For actually no, he is pitting now. Meaning that he will be dropping down a few positions. Here goes Kimi on this new soft tyre compound. How far can he push? Just got to this race. If I was him, I'd honestly be doing the strategy of the driver behind him, which is Toro Rosso. The medium tyre compound seems to be a lot safer, but we never know how long the safety car will be lasting. It could potentially last a few laps, which ultimately would give Kimi the lead. The strategy lead, of course. And here they are, after having a 30-second gap. Kimi is in a state where he has to defend from two raging drivers behind him. He is a raging bull, though, I have to remind you. Bit of drama here from Most 10. P17 he's driving in. He should be allowed to overtake these drivers and the safety car to make up for the lap that he is down on. We see most drivers now here and ready for the resuming of this race. Who do you think will come out victorious? Who do you think? This is something that could potentially switch up the entire running of this league, of this race, sorry, because what we're seeing here is quite unbelievable. From having a very clean race, a very easy, relaxed race, although there has been plenty of overtaking around this track, which is something we definitely didn't expect, we now end up with a safety car which has brought the entire grid together. The Ferrari still is pushing everything. Kingsley has finally left the session after being DNF'd for many laps. We haven't received information yet about the safety car coming back in. But the drivers are surely expecting it to happen very soon. I'm very happy that I haven't received any glitches like the one we have received last race, where one of our drivers was glitching between the front and the back of the pack all the time. The race control has released information that the safety car will be in this lap, meaning that the Red Bull will have to defend on lap 26 of 33. What will his competitors do? This could potentially be a fight for the championship lead. And lap 26 of 33 is about to commence. Drivers are now on the fresh tyre compounds thanks to the pit stops. And here they go. Lap 26 now commences, and we see all the drivers close up. The Red Bull of Kimi immediately pulls away, as we see the Red Bull, the Renault coming very close to the Toro Rosso in front of him. The sub-tyre compound is easily pushing the limits of the Toro Rosso in front of him. He manages to take an eye into the inside of the Toro Rosso then to turn 1, but that is not enough to make the overtake. Turn 2 and 3 is now the turns that they are going through. The Renault is still holding on. Can he keep it though? They are very far away from the drivers behind them though. The Renault does make the overtake, and he is now running. IST is now running P2. Excellent performance from this driver to make a easy overtake around a not so easy track. A trainer is of course present around the rest of the grid because of the safety car, as we see the Red Bull, and the Racing Point fighting here for the position of P9. Two different strategies. One of them is on the soft tyre compound, one of them is on the medium tyre compound, but doesn't mean that any one of them is slower, because the Red Bull does have a bit more speed, as we've seen in the previous parts of this race. The two McLarens will now be soon fighting each other, which on this exact same strategy will not be the best idea. 1:20 is the time set by the Aston Martin Red Bull Racing Tag Heuer, as we see plenty of drama here. The Toro Rosso is switching from side to side. It's not the first time we've seen this from in this race. And dearly, I'm telling you, this is something that I believe he should be getting a penalty point for, because switching from side to side of the track more than once while being followed closely by a car behind is something illegal in the FIA Formula 1 Championship. Is that something that will cost him a potential point here though? Remember that 2 points will sacrifice his chances in this league. He will be kicked from it. But Kimi here, an absolutely dominant performance. He's literally a bit of a Kimi Räikkönen himself, with a mixture of Kimi with Max Verstappen. He's an aggressive driver. He fights. He knows what he's here to achieve, and he comes and executes the job perfectly. Of course, the DNF of Killers has helped there a lot, but he is still putting on a great show for all of us. I have to admit that. Going slightly off there is the Renault. DRS has been re-enabled for this race after the safety car has de-enabled it. The two Red Bulls, the two McLarens coming very close to each other as Räikkönen now goes up onto the inside of his teammate, which makes a very easy move into turn 1. One of the easier places to overtake around this track. Jack is now trailing into P6, and a hybrid is managing to close down on him. Magic also gets a 3-second tap penalty for multiple warnings, something that is very easy to get around any track. A beautiful swivel from the right up to the side of the track to the left. Manuel is now on P11. He's constantly fighting the Toro Rosso here for P10. This is the bottom podium. This is the bottom points position. And what do we see here now? Lap 20 of 33. This race comes to a close as we now see a beautiful shot of the Toro Rosso fighting the Haas in front of it for a potential move, and there he is into P9. And now Jacob, from running in P9, is becoming victim to a potential loss of any points in this race. IST, after running in second, has lost his position to the Toro Rosso ahead of him. So he is now trailing by 0.9 of a second, which still gives him the ease of the DRS zone and the use of the DRS and slipstream. But Is it enough? Now the gap is 1 second, meaning that this driver will no longer be in the reach of DRS. Pre-free is what you have to settle with, unless the drivers behind him will be fighting for something more than what they're currently sitting in. Two McLarens here are starting to separate themselves from each other, but it's the Alfa Romeo which is pushing up to closer to P3, which is something that we should all take a look at, and that is possibly the chance is done there, as Monster gets a 3-second time penalty. If we take a quick look at the race director and we see all the incidents, we can see who's got penalties. We see that Monster has received a penalty, and so has King Enzo. By the looks of it though, the top drivers are clear, meaning that all odds are lining up for Kimi. 3 laps left of this race, and he is comfortably leading by a 5-second gap. Absolute dominant performance from this driver. He separated 2 other drivers last race, and this is just spectacular. What we're seeing here is an amazing show of power. It's almost like the Cold War just between the Red Bulls and Ferraris. It's when the Red Ferraris have given in that the Red Bull has managed to dominate, and the safety car which was deployed post the incident, which was likely to involve Iron there, has given him the edge. Magic Alonso retires from the session. For an unknown reason, we will see Mo Sanu's running in 17th, past P16 very soon. We saw Sector 3 running in a yellow flag, but by the looks of it, everyone's safe. Savvy, as we've just seen, has acclimatized the track a bit too much there, risking this penalty, as we see the Mercedes of Manel in the wall, which looks as if it's the wall after turn 12. Devastating news for the primary Mercedes driver. It was in the best of the performances, but it wasn't the worst. We now see the other Red Bull hybrid now pushing the McLaren, which is in front of him. A possible good double points for the Red Bulls. He takes a look on the inside on the slow tyre compound. He still manages to make a move. Beautiful execution there, but does he make a stick there? The McLaren is still very close as his teammates fighting Monster for P4. Monster, as we have seen before, has had a 3-second time penalty. This is turning out to be a very clean race with plenty of great overtakes, but anything is still to happen. We've still got this lap and 2 more to go. As we now see the Toro Rosso going up on a big move up on the inside of the McLaren. Can he make a stick though? As we see a yellow flag in sector 2. Looks like the McLaren has to give in there. This chicane being too dangerous to stay in and fight on. Low grip barrier it is. IC now closes down on Gamer, which is in P2. Potentially we could see some last lap drama. 0.7 seconds separates these two. 0.6 now, which means that we could see a last lap overtake thanks to the DRS and slipstream. Hopefully though, this doesn't bring out any sort of controversial action. An incident. 0.58 seconds now separates these two drivers. They are coming very close to each other. 0.54. This is a last lap drama, as I've said before, that we're going to see here. That runs, and here they go. 0.55. Slipstream and DRS is what's enabled now. Is coming extremely close, braking later and later. One of these drivers will soon have to give in, either after leading to a bit of a crash for themselves, which is something that we're definitely not hoping for, but could potentially aspire and happen. Or we're going to see a beautiful overtake. What will happen, I don't know. But I do know that this is going to be something amazing that we all want to see. We've got 6 viewers. Make sure to tell your friends to watch this now, because what you could see here is going to be amazing. We are on lap 33 of 33. This is the largest chance that ISD has on getting the P2 position before he enters the VRL final race of the season. This potential position could give him a lot of confidence, but any form of failure will destroy any morality that he goes into the next race with. How far can he push his car through the final corners of this race? He's got 10 corners left. Hybrid Snorlax retires from the session. That is the McLaren and the Red Bull that have retired, but there is no time to look at that. That is a very unfortunate event. I wish I could see that there, but what we're seeing here is a 0.5 second gap between the Toro Rosso and the Red Bull and the Renault. Sorry, can he make it sick though? Once it remains in P4, followed by Compassion in P5 and Jack in P6. But the race is led comfortably by Kimi, who is destroying everyone else by over 7 seconds. The last corners are now comprehended here, and by the looks of it, if Gamer doesn't crash out, these drives will remain the way they are right now. And yes, that is it. These are the final drivers now going over the line. Manel was very unlucky to go and crash into the wall there. Jacob receives a meantime 5-second time penalty for an unserved penalty that he was meant to serve. The drivers are now setting the final quarters, and this is it. Your race leader, your race winner is Kimi. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful performance from this driver. He really couldn't have done much more. I'm sure if we saw Killers still in the competition, we would have seen something else happen. But we are now going to invite the interview drivers. So as you can see here, Kimi has won the race. A beautiful performance from him. Could potentially put him in a position of ease going into the next race. And the grid is rounded off by Kingsley as DNF'd on the opening laps of this race. Killer's absolutely unlucky. The Turkish driver was about to win the race potentially, but has ended up giving it off to Kimi, which was in P4. That is it for the race today, but what we're going to be waiting for now are the interviews, so make sure to stay tuned. Don't leave yet, please. We're going to have a short break here, just waiting for our drivers to enter a little chat party that we could talk through. Kimmy, are you there? Hello.
Does it work? Hello?
Yep, I can hear you. How would you describe your race today?
Perfect. No mistakes, really good pace, and yeah, I was practically escaping from everyone after killers stuff. Had really good pace with medium tires, also with the hards.
Yeah, everybody was panicking a bit in the chat, and I was panicking as well. If you look back in the stream, you could see that. In the moments before, when the safety car was deployed, you hesitated to go out on into the pits and actually go onto a strategy. Was that something that you were worried about, or were you just making a tactical decision and waiting for the next lap to pit?
To be honest, I was worried because I passed the pit lane and said, no, but I should stop because I'm not going to lose any place. So I saw the safety car and panicked actually, but yeah, could pass the safety car and box next lap.
Yeah, that was a very lucky event. How would you describe your championship standings after this race? After last race, you were saying that you have a moderate chance, but how would you describe your chances after this race?
Now the championship is starting to heat up a bit. I mean, a race winner, it doesn't always have chances to win, but I think I have now the chance to win, to fight for the championship at least.
Yeah, so we're through round 5, and your teammate has actually retired from the session. He has also been DNF'd. How would you describe that? Do you think you've got more of a chance winning on your own as the for the drivers' championship, or do you think you can still motivate him and get him to work alongside you so that you could win the team championship?
We can fight for the team championship as well. Maybe it's too late, but because we didn't have luck the first races, but Giorgio has a really good pace, like mine basically, in my opinion, so I think we can fight for podiums championship maybe with Renault.
Yeah, so after last race you were sitting in P9 in the team standings. Of course everyone else would have to be moderated accordingly, but by the looks of it, with your 25 points and the fastest lap, you could be looking at a potential P6 there. How would you describe the performance there for the team? Do you think your team principal will be happy with both of you? Do you think that your teammate put in maximum effort regardless of the fact that he DNF'd, or do you think that there was still room for improvement?
All I know is that he said he was happy with both of us, so I think he won't be, maybe a bit annoyed, but because of Giorgio's retirement, but I think he will be happy still with pace.
Okay, and how would you describe the event with Killers? Of course it was very unfortunate for him, but it was very lucky for you. How did you react when you saw that little mark at the bottom of the screen that said Killers 42 retired from the session?
I was like, well, one of my rivals in this race, apart from Benjamin and Ice-T, I think I need to keep my head down and try to focus.
Yeah, it seems like that's what you did very well today, and that's what got you the win. Okay, that's for you. Thank you very much, and I will now be waiting for everyone else. Good luck next race.
Thanks. See you.
To remind you that we're still waiting for 2 of the other drivers to turn up for the interviews. If they do not turn up within the next 10 minutes, we will end the stream there. But for now, we're still having a bit of a hope that something could end up going well here regarding our interviews. So as we've heard from Kimi and the Red Bull, the team principal is very happy with their performance here. Of course, it was very unfortunate what happened to the other Red Bull. But with 25 points for the win and a fast lap point, these drivers will be threading it through the rest of the season. By the looks of it, the 2 drivers that we were meant to interview are not active in the chat. They might be away from the stations, I guess you could call them, from the racing sims. So by the looks of it, they're not going to join, which is why we're going to end the stream here. Thank you all for joining here today. This was an absolutely amazing race to commentate. We've seen plenty of overtakes around the track that is not so easy to overtake. Spain de Catalonia is a very demanding track, as we've seen. So there's several zones where you need to stay on your toes, have your head down, and make sure that you're performing as well as you possibly can, because the 4.6 kilometer circuit that's been running since 1991 is going to be, it has to be one of the more demanding circuits around the calendar. It might even be up there with Monaco and Azerbaijan, because some of those low grip areas as we've seen today absolutely destroy people's races. Killers there, very unfortunate with what happened to him. Being midway through the race and having a faster tyre compound than Kimi, he could have won this quite comfortably. As Kimi has said in the interview, he was pressured by Kimi and then by the little mistake he made by not going into the pits, but all odds lined up for him. He managed to pit in the perfect moment, had fresh tyres until the end of the race, and that's what ultimately put him in such a high position. At Monaco, the race winner was Ice-T, followed by Aaron and Kimi. Kimi has now gone from being in P3 in that race to winning this race. This is something that I can guarantee you we won't see much of in any other league. This is why you should stay tuned with our league for the next race, which is going to be hosted next Wednesday. The time was still going to be confirmed, but I'd like to invite you for it regardless of the time, is going to be hosted at. My name is Oliver. I'd like to thank you for joining me here today. Peace.